Liu Zhu clutched the money tightly to his chest, his arms wrapped protectively around the stacks of cash. No one would want to let go of such a massive sum, not when it was right there, so tangible, so life-changing. Before slipping away, he forced an awkward smile, hoping desperately that it would redeem his shattered image in Zhou Hui's eyes. But the attempt was pitiful and everyone knew it. As Liu Zhu scrambled out of the rose bar like a beaten dog, Zhou Hui turned his attention to the still trembling Lin Hao. His face was ice cold, his gaze sharp. Without even glancing at Brother Hu, he gestured toward the untouched wine on the table. "This wine's for you," he said simply. "Thank you very much," Brother Hu replied without hesitation. Without another word, Brother Hu grabbed Lin Hao and tossed him, quite literally, out of the rose bar. The moment the task was done, a wave of satisfaction washed over Zhou Hui. His good mood was evident. He clapped a hand on Liu Qiang's shoulder, grinning wide. "Let's go, this bro's taking you to the second floor for a drink." Liu Qiang's eyes welled up with emotion. "Brother Hui, you're too awesome," he said, his voice shaking with admiration. They shared a similar past, both ridiculed, both underestimated. But seeing Zhou Hui stand tall now, commanding respect and exuding an aura of power, it made Liu Qiang's blood boil with excitement. "Kid, you've got some ambition, haven't you?" Zhou Hui teased, giving him a playful punch on the chest. "Good days are just beginning, let's go drink." Their laughter carried them up to the second floor, where their arrival immediately turned heads. The crowd recognized them from the spectacle downstairs and the whispers began. "That's the guy who spent all that money on the first floor. Handsome and rich, he's the ideal husband. I need to find a way to get his contact info." Zhou Hui settled into an empty seat, his smile devilish and self-assured. His presence captivated the room, and soon enough women started approaching, each one more stunning than the last, swaying their hips and tossing flirtatious glances his way. But Zhou Hui played it cool. He accepted their admiration without effort, his confidence only making them more eager. Meanwhile, Liu Qiang sat awkwardly by his side. The attention was clearly focused on Zhou Hui, and the gap between them felt wider than ever. "Brother Hui, I've got something urgent to take care of," Liu Qiang said at last, his voice tinged with embarrassment. "What's the rush?" Zhou Hui asked, his eyes narrowing. "It's nothing big," Liu Qiang replied hastily, draining his glass and rising to his feet. "I'll see you later." "All right," Zhou Hui nodded. "If you need help, just ask." With a grateful nod, Liu Qiang waved and left. Just then, a familiar voice echoed in Zhou Hui's mind. "Ding, host, please be advised, you must spend all your money before dawn to collect it." The reminder snapped Zhou Hui's focus back to reality. There was no time for rest, not if he wanted to make the most of this windfall. He snapped his fingers, catching the attention of a nearby waiter. "Bring me the best bartender you've got." The Rose Bar was famous for its instant cocktails, and even more so for the stunning bartenders who crafted them. Each one was a vision of beauty and elegance, and their services didn't come cheap. A short while later, the bartender arrived. She wore an English-style suit and waistcoat paired with a sleek black skirt, her sharp attire only enhancing the air of sophistication around her. Every movement was precise, every gesture elegant. But her face was ice cold, betraying not a single emotion. Zhou Hui's eyes gleamed with curiosity as he studied her. There was something about her detachment that made her even more intriguing. "Make me your best cocktail," he said. The bartender gave a slight nod and began her work, her hands moving with practiced grace. "What's your name?" Zhou Hui asked casually. "You can call me Ai Mei," she replied without looking up. He frowned, that was obviously not her real name. "What would it take for you to tell me your real name?" he pressed, flashing a confident smile. She remained silent, focused entirely on her craft, but the other women nearby had plenty to say. "Tisk, she's just a bartender, what's she acting so high and mighty for? She's probably not even that good at mixing drinks. Handsome, why not come home with me instead? I'll make you something better." But Zhou Hui paid them no mind. His eyes stayed fixed on Ai Mei, his curiosity only deepening. 10,000 yuan, he offered. "Tell me your real name." No response. 20,000. Still nothing. 50,000, he said, voice low and serious. At last Ai Mei looked up. "If you can make a cocktail that impresses me," she said calmly, "I'll tell you." The challenge hung heavy in the air. "Make you a drink, that's all?" Zhou Hui asked, eyebrows raised. "It's not as easy as it sounds," Ai Mei warned. Zhou Hui's grin widened. He was already riding high from his earlier victory, and now this ice-cold beauty had thrown down the gauntlet. "All right," he said, laughter bubbling up from his chest. "Challenge accepted." The crowd around them stirred with excitement. AI May was famous in the Rose Bar, known both for her exceptional skills and her untouchable demeanor. Many had tried to win her over, but none had succeeded. "Is this guy serious?" someone whispered. "He thinks he can impress the Ice Queen. He'll crash and burn just like the rest." But Joe Hui didn't care about the whispers, he only had eyes for AI May. "All right then," he said, stepping forward with a gleam of anticipation. "Watch closely, let's see who's really worth admiring." The corner of Joe Hui's mouth curls into a smile as he strides toward the counter, his movements composed and unhurried. The dim lights of the Rose Bar cast shifting patterns over the polished wood, reflecting off the rows of colorful bottles lined behind the bar. Reaching Zhou Liubing's side, he lifts an eyebrow at her, but her expression remains unreadable, cool, detached. Word of the challenge has already spread downstairs and skepticism lingers in her gaze. She has heard it all before. No one has ever truly impressed her, not even after all her years of studying abroad and sparring with the most renowned mixologists. A crowd gathers, drawn by the unfolding spectacle. Some whisper in hushed excitement, others scoff. "Wow, it's actually him. He has so much money, but I didn't expect him to be good at this too. He's just putting on a show. Zhou Liubing's skill is legendary, he doesn't stand a chance. He's just standing there, does he even know what he's doing?" Laughter ripples through the crowd, but Zhou Hui remains unmoved. He lets the noise wash over him, absorbed in thought. Before him, the counter gleams under the dim lights, scattered with an array of glassware, bottles, and ingredients. His fingers tap lightly against the bar as he considers his approach. Then, with a decisive motion, he picks up an ice cube and turns to Zhou Liubing. "Do me a favor," he says, his tone calm, expectant. Zhou Liubing narrows her eyes. "You're the one showing off, I'm not the one mixing." A smirk tugs at the corner of Zhou Hui's lips as he hands her the ice. "Trust me, what I create isn't something ordinary." A brief hesitation, then despite herself, Zhou Liubing accepts. Whispers stir through the onlookers. Did he just get AI May to help him? What kind of trick is this? He's smart. If the great bartender helps him, she won't badmouth the final drink. A man steps forward from the crowd, arms crossed. Let's see if he's really got what it takes. Zhou Hui instructs Zhou Liubing to cut the ice into triangles. She does so with practiced precision, the blade gliding smoothly through the crystal-clear block. He nods in satisfaction, then asks her to stir the ice with a spoon dipped in mint water. She follows his lead, curiosity flickering in her eyes. Choosing brandy as the base, Zhou Hui moves with swift confidence, adding ingredients with effortless grace. The bottles clink softly as he pours, the liquid swirling as he transfers it into a decanter. With practiced ease, he begins to shake, fluid, controlled, each motion deliberate. Murmurs ripple through the crowd. He looks like he knows what he's doing. It's just theatrics, wait till the end. Some watch in fascination, their skepticism beginning to waver. He's so cool, how can someone be so perfect? Zhou Liubing watches, arms crossed, yet her gaze remains fixed on his movements. There is something about his precision, his composure, something unexpected. The final steps approach. Zhou Hui takes the ice and examines it once more before nodding. "That's enough, thanks." He lifts his glass in casual acknowledgement. He pours the freshly shaken liquor over the ice, then adds a touch of soda. The bubbles rise, sending the triangular ice spinning. A thin layer of cream follows, settling between the liquid layers. The remaining half of the drink is poured, the layers beginning to take shape. A hushed silence falls over the crowd. The drink glows beneath the lights, a brilliant gradient of blue at the base, swirling into creamy white. The ice tumbles lazily in the effervescent liquid caught in the currents. Zhou Liubing's gaze sharpens, recognition flashes in her eyes. This is. Gasp from the crowd. It can't be Angel Beauty. Excited voices erupt in response. Angel Beauty, a legendary cocktail created by a Portuguese bartender in the 1980s. The recipe was lost long ago. Zhou Liubing's pulse quickens. The impossible drink sits before her, flawless in presentation. She watches as Zhou Hui adds the final touch, a single drop of deep red juice. It falls, spreading like ink through the creamy white layer, shifting the colors in mesmerizing patterns. With a quiet breath, Zhou Hui slides the glass toward her. She hesitates for only a moment before accepting. Lifting the drink to her lips, she takes a sip. The flavors unfold in an instant, refreshing sweetness, a hint of sour, a whisper of salt. The balance is perfect, the complexity intoxicating. A single tear slips down her cheek, disappearing into the swirling colors of the glass. You stand before the spectacle of an artist at work. Zhou Liubing, a figure of renown in the world of mixology, is transfixed. Never before had she encountered a drink of such depth, a liquid symphony of complexity that mirrored the very bitterness of life, only to resolve into tranquility. A masterpiece. She turns, finally breaking her stunned silence, her gaze fixed upon Joe Hui. The question is simple, but the weight behind it immense. How did you do it? Joe Hui responds with an air of unshakable confidence. He snaps his fingers, strides toward her, and leans in, hands resting on either side of the table, caging her in his presence. A smirk plays at his lips as he speaks, the words dripping with pride. I told you the wine I mix isn't something ordinary people can make. Now, will you tell me your name? A smile, a rare and unprecedented sight, graces Zhou Liuping's face as she extends a hand. Hello, my name is Zhou Liuping. Murmur of the gathered crowd rises in pitch. She actually smiled. I've been here 100 times and never seen her smile at anyone. Who the hell is this guy? A disciple of some legendary master. I need to look him up. He's too handsome. If I were her, I'd have just thrown myself into his arms. Even the manager and the waiting staff, once entertained by the scene unfolding before them, now stand in disbelief. The Ice Queen had melted, if only for a moment. Zhou Hui merely smirks at their amazement, ignoring them as he approaches a waiter. Without hesitation, he pulls out a wad of cash, 300,000 yuan. Here, this covers tonight's drinks and a generous tip for Miss A.I. May. I'm very satisfied with her service. And with that, he turns and strides away, not sparing a single glance behind. The room erupts once more. A tycoon, he just threw out 300,000 like it was nothing. But Zhou Hui has no interest in their reactions. He has bigger things to handle. Just as he steps out, a voice echoes in his mind. Ding, congratulations to host for completing the task. You have unlocked the second location. He frowns. The last time he completed a task, he received a reward, yet now there is nothing. No additional skills, he muses. The response is blunt. Supplementary skills are granted at random. This time none appeared. Zhou Hui exhales, accepting the reality. A glance at the mental map reveals his next destination. He moves toward the exit just as the first rays of dawn break the darkness, cooling the night's intensity. Then a voice calls out to him. Zhou Hui. He turns to see Song Kaiyan, his supervisor. Today she is out of her usual work attire, her hair cascading freely down her shoulders. There is something different about her, a softer air. She eyes him warily, taking in his disheveled state, dark circles, loose hair, the unmistakable scent of alcohol, her brows knit together. Zhou Hui, were you here all night? He does not answer, only nods. Sigh escapes her lips, full of concern. Listen, I know breaking up with your girlfriend hit you hard, but drowning yourself in alcohol isn't the answer. She speaks with the authority of someone who has fought her way through life, wanting the best for those she deems worthy. She left because she wasn't meant for you. You have so much potential, Zhou Hui. If you focus, work hard, there's nothing you can't achieve. You'll find someone who truly values you. Once he might have been grateful for these words, now they only feel misplaced. Chief, it's not what you think. She cuts him off before he can finish. You don't need to explain, just promise me you'll pull yourself together. Zhou Hui chuckles softly. How could she understand? Reaching into his pocket, he pulls out 2 stacks of bills. By the way, about the salary advance, I'm settling the difference. Shock flickers across Song Kaiyan's face. Zhou Hui, do you have enough? If not, I can cover you a little longer. Before she can finish, he places the cash into her hands, nearly 20,000 yuan, more than enough to settle his debt. Her fingers tighten around the bills, her thoughts racing. How did he suddenly have so much money? Zhou Hui, you're not. Her voice wavers, concern giving way to suspicion. Zhou Hui laughs, shaking his head. Relax, Chief, I still have things to do, see you around. Without another word, he moves on. The map leads him to his next destination, the most luxurious shopping center in the city, Slanka Shopping Center. As he steps inside, he is struck by the sheer opulence. Polished marble floors gleam under the light, intricate golden patterns reflecting like a dream. Ornate decorations line the walls, vases of fresh flowers breathing life into the space. Even the restroom carries an air of grandeur, the scent of incense lingering in the air. Following the directions in his mind, he enters the third stall. There upon the counter rests a golden card. Beside it a slip of paper. A single digit. Series of zeros. Zhou Hui counts. 1,000,000. Ding, a crisp mechanical voice echoed in Zhou Hui's mind. Host, please spend 1,000,000 yuan from your light card before 8 o'clock tonight, otherwise your lifespan will be deducted by 50%. He glanced at the time, 7 o'clock sharp, still early. Zhou Hui picked up the card and examined it. The sleek golden surface gleamed under the soft lighting. A realization struck him, this was Slanka's shopping card. He had heard of these before. Slanka issued three types: the white card available for 50,000 yuan, the silver card which required at least 100,000, and this, the rare gold card costing no less than 500,000 yuan to acquire. Only the elite of the city possessed such a card. Bitter chuckle escaped his lips. Not long ago, Liu Zhu had pestered him for a mere white card, yet he hadn't even been able to afford that. Now, within days, he held something far superior. Ironic. The mall was still mostly closed, except for the exclusive 10th floor, accessible only by a private elevator. His stomach rumbled. He hadn't even eaten yet, and if the rumors were true, the 10th floor housed the most extravagant restaurant in the city. Without hesitation, he stepped into the elevator. A well-dressed young woman was inside, her arm linked with an older man. The scent of expensive perfume lingered in the air. As soon as she noticed Zhou Hui, her lips curled into a sneer. "Hubby, why do you think just anyone is allowed up here? They should put a sign outside, poor people not permitted." The older man smirked. "That's right, forget about the treasures here, he couldn't afford them even if he spent his life savings. What do you want to eat, darling? I know a new Michelin restaurant." The woman nodded, casting occasional glances at Zhou Hui, her amusement thinly veiled. Zhou Hui simply scoffed and ignored them. He had seen countless women like her, just like Liu Zhu, opportunists who latched onto wealth, abandoning whoever failed to provide. The elevator door slid open. The 10th floor was nothing short of breathtaking. The architecture was lavish, reminiscent of a palace. Lofty ceilings, grand chandeliers, and multi-level boutique stores designed in various artistic styles, ancient, modern, French, Spanish, each exuding its own charm. It was a world he had never stepped into before. As he took it all in, uncertain where to start, the couple strolled past him. "Hubby, do you think he's here to eat too?" The woman covered her mouth, giggling. What could he possibly afford? The man chuckled. "Who knows, even the leftovers here are better than whatever slop he eats every day. Let's go, ignore him." Zhou Hui noted their destination, a newly opened French restaurant. "Perfect." He followed not for their taunts, but because he needed to eat. Inside, the stark contrast in treatment was immediate. The couple was swarmed by waitstaff, their presence met with endless flattery. Zhou Hui completely ignored. He didn't mind, he casually picked a seat near them. A young waitress, appearing hesitant, finally approached, but before she could speak, another server pulled her aside. "Zioxy, don't waste your time, people like him just order a cup of tap water and sit around, it's useless." Zioxy hesitated, then smiled politely and walked up to Zhou Hui. "Sir, may I take your order?" He glanced around, there were no menus. "Where's the menu?" he asked. She shook her head. "We don't have one, you may request any ingredients you like and the chef will create a custom dish." A restaurant where wealth dictated the meal. The couple snickered nearby. "See, he doesn't even know how to order, he should just go downstairs for a cup of soy milk." "No, hubby, this is the CBD, he probably can't even afford soy milk." Zhou Hui smirked. He looked up at the waitress. "I'd like to rent the entire restaurant, 300,000 enough." Dioxy hesitated, visibly unsure. The couple burst into laughter. "Hahaha, a full buyout, this idiot thinks this is some street stall." "Right, hubby, he's hilarious, hahaha." Zhou Hui remained unfazed. Silently he pulled out his gold card. A hush fell over the surrounding patrons. He has a gold card. Probably fake, if he were really rich would he dress like that?" Zioxy, unsure how to proceed, took the card and rushed off to find the manager. Moments later, a middle-aged man appeared, his eyes scanning the room. Upon spotting the older man and the couple, he beamed. "Boss Wang, why didn't you inform me you were coming? Are you the one requesting a full buyout?" The older man laughed heartily. "Manager Li, not me, him." He pointed at Zhou Hui with open disdain. "This brat is just putting on a show, you should kick him out before he embarrasses himself." Manager Li turned, studying Zhou Hui closely. His initial confidence wavered. He approached, his tone polite yet uncertain. "Sir, are you truly requesting to book the entire restaurant for 300,000? Zhou Hui took a sip from the bowl in front of him. Snickers erupted from those around him. Even Manager Li stifled a chuckle. Dioxy leaned in awkwardly. "Sir, that's hand-washing water." Zhou Hui calmly set the bowl down. "Manager," he said as if nothing had happened. "Since it's possible, process the payment, deduct 310,000, the extra is a tip for the waitstaff." His voice was steady, utterly indifferent to the amount he was spending. Manager Li hesitated but eventually nodded, stepping away to confirm the transaction. The older man grinned. "See, I told you it's fake, he's just some lowlife bluffing his way through life, why don't you throw him out already?" Manager Lee did not spare Boss Wang a second glance, striding directly to Zhou Hui with an air of servility. A tense silence followed as realization dawned upon Boss Wang. His earlier arrogance now seemed like a precarious gamble, one he was grateful he hadn't taken too far. If he had truly embarrassed this man, the 300,000 yuan in his possession would have slipped through his fingers like sand. With a nervous chuckle, Manager Lee lowered his head. Sir, it really doesn't mean anything. Just now it was my dog eyes that failed to recognize MT. Tai, you wish to take care of it in the morning? Of course, taking care of it for the entire day would be even better. Zhou Hui responded with nothing more than a nonchalant "Mn," his gaze indifferent. Only then did Manager Lee let out a breath of relief. He turned to his waitstaff, his tone sharp. What are you all standing around for? Hurry up and pour the water. Go fetch the head chef. Mister, whatever you wish to eat, discuss it directly with him. Bending slightly, he looked back at Zhou Hui. Sir, is there anything else you require? The exchange happened so quickly that the onlookers were left stunned, unable to process what they had just witnessed. A slight smile tugged at the corner of Zhou Hui's lips. Moments ago they had ridiculed him without restraint. Now, even as he merely drank water, not a single soul dared to voice a complaint. Without a word, he turned his gaze toward the couple seated beside him. Manager Lee caught the silent message and swiftly approached them. Boss Wang, our restaurant has been fully booked. Please leave at once. I will personally refund your meal expenses. The woman at Boss Wang's side immediately frowned, her grip tightening around his sleeve. Hubby, I want to eat here, she whined, her voice soft and coquettish, her gaze suggestive. But as she fluttered her lashes at Zhou Hui, she was met with nothing but a cold, disdainful stare. Caught in the trap of her allure, Boss Wang faltered. Okay, he muttered, unable to resist. Yet in the back of his mind, logic reared its head. No one, no matter how wealthy, would spend 300,000 yuan on breakfast. Besides, the money wasn't even his, it belonged to his main household. Summoning his bravado, Boss Wang plastered a smile on his face and walked up to Zhou Hui just as a tall, golden-haired, blue-eyed man entered the room. Dressed in a pristine chef's uniform, he was accompanied by Xioxi. The renowned head chef Mr. Brown. Boss Wang, undeterred, chuckled shamelessly. Handsome, it was all a misunderstanding. Zhou Hui, however, paid him no mind, focused only on his discussion with Brown. Undeterred, Boss Wang tried again. Handsome, let's eat together as friends. Zhou Hui's conversation with Brown concluded, he turned to Boss Wang, his voice unwavering. No. Memories of the earlier mockery surfaced. He had done nothing to provoke them, yet they had insulted him freely. Once he had endured such slights due to poverty, but now he had the power to fight back. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them, he thought. Boss Wang's face darkened, his frustration mounting. Brat, do you even know who I am? Do you believe that I? Before he could finish his threat, Zhou Hui cut him off. Manager Lee, I booked this place to avoid unnecessary noise, if this continues. Understanding the implied command, Manager Lee promptly stepped forward. Boss Wang, it's best if you leave now. Let's not make this situation any uglier than it already is. Face flushing green with suppressed rage, Boss Wang shot one last glare at Zhou Hui before storming out, ignoring the woman whining behind him. Just then, another figure approached. Sir, I must remind you, Manager Lee said cautiously, the man who just left was Wang Zhongshan, the owner of Hayashan. He was furious when he left. I fear that he. Zhou Hui barely spared the comment a thought. Wang Zhongshan, just a mere contractor. Seeing his indifference, Manager Lee chose not to interfere further. Clapping his hands, he signaled to the staff. Zhou Hui leaned back in his chair, hands resting behind his head, watching as a procession of female attendants carried in trays of delicacies. Squinting slightly, he smirked. It's good to be rich. News of the extravagant breakfast purchase spread like wildfire throughout the building. As Zhou Hui strolled through the market, whispers followed him everywhere, yet no one recognized him. The faint scent of alcohol still clung to him from his night at the Rose Bar. He frowned slightly, realizing he needed a fresh change of clothes. Taking out his phone, he dialed a number. The moment the call connected, a cheerful voice greeted him. Hey, brother Hui, what's up? I'm heading to Slanka to buy some clothes. Come along and pick something out. A brief hesitation. Brother Hui, I have some matters to handle later. I can't make it this time. Mildly disappointed, Zhou Hui simply nodded and ended the call. His feet had led him to a men's clothing store where a handsome suit in the window display caught his eye. He halted, admiring the craftsmanship. Just then, a clerk named Zhou Li emerged from the store. Her gaze flickered to the old, tattered phone in his hand. Lips curling, she scoffed before disappearing back inside. Zhou Hui paid her no mind, it was just a piece of cloth after all. Inside the store, the staff engaged in lively gossip about the morning's events. Can you imagine how rich you must be to spend that much on breakfast? I wonder what he looks like, I heard he's young, one clerk gushed. Another laughed, what, you want to marry him? Zhou Li clasped her hands together dreamily. Of course, if he wanted to marry me he could do whatever he wanted, who wouldn't want to be a rich wife? As they spoke they noticed Zhou Hui browsing but ignored him. One clerk made a move to approach but Zhou Li stopped her. Don't bother, he can't afford anything, he'll just look around and leave. Zhou Hui, unfazed, reached out to touch the suit from the window display. Before his fingers could brush the fabric, Zhou Li interjected sharply. Hey, if you can't afford it, don't touch it. What if you damage it? How will you compensate? Zhou Hui turned slowly, his gaze landing on Zhou Li. She hurried over, brushing at the fabric as if it had been contaminated, her expression filled with disdain. Seriously, a poor kid like you, who are you fooling? Zhou Hui frowned but refrained from responding. Then the entrance chimed. Zhou Li immediately straightened, adopting a sweet smile. Welcome, sir, our store has just released a new model. Would you like to take a look? It would suit you perfectly. Zhou Hui turned his head. Their gazes locked. Of all people, Wang Zhongshan had just walked in. Zhou Hui sneered, stepping aside to browse other clothes, completely ignoring the commotion behind him. Zhou Li, sensing that the powerful man in front of her bore some grudge against the seemingly poor young man, hurried over to smooth things over. Boss, our shop specializes in the highest-end custom fashion. Not everyone can afford it, so don't worry. Hearing this, Wang Zhongshan glanced at Zhou Hui and smirked. Could it be that this brat couldn't even afford a single outfit? Instantly, a sense of superiority swelled within him. You're absolutely right. He heaved a dramatic sigh of relief and sank into the plush sofa. Go fetch the clothes he was looking at. I want him to see what real wealth looks like. Zhou Hui let out a cold laugh, watching as Zhou Li obediently took the garments from the display window. Meanwhile, Wang Zhongshan continued his mocking tirade. What's the matter, brat? Not going to keep up the act? I thought you had the ability to splurge on extravagant breakfasts worth 300,000 yuan. Turns out you're just another fraud, and now you can't even buy a single piece of clothing. Zhou Li, hearing mention of the breakfast incident, suddenly realized who Zhou Hui was. Her hands trembled, nearly dropping the expensive fabric she held. Regret flooded her, twisting her insides into knots. Zhou Hui sauntered over to Wang Zhongshan, his presence suddenly suffocating. The so-called big boss began to fidget under his gaze. Unlike you, at least I have my own money. Zhou Hui's voice was cold, his words razor-sharp. You're just a scavenger searching through every woman you play with for scraps. The color drained from Wang Zhongshan's face. The woman beside him flushed red in embarrassment. The onlookers fell silent. Everyone knew the truth behind Zhou Hui's words, but no one had ever dared to say it out loud until now. Boy, you're crossing the line. I won't let this slide, Wang Zhongshan stammered. Zhou Hui simply slid his hands into his pockets, looking down at him with a smug indifference. Waiter, bring me a pair of scissors. The atmosphere in the store turned electric. Murmurs spread through the growing crowd. What are you planning? Panic crept into Wang Zhongshan's voice. Zhou Li, still struggling with her earlier actions, saw this as an opportunity to redeem herself. Sir, please don't be impulsive, she pleaded. Zhou Hui took the scissors, his expression unreadable. The tension reached its peak. Some customers even shut their eyes in fear. With 2 swift snips, the deed was done. The entire store gasped. Wang Zhongshan's once luxurious clothes now hung in pitiful shreds, barely covering his body. His bloated beer belly jiggled as he stood there, humiliated. Only a pair of gaudy floral-patterned underwear remained. Laughter erupted. The mighty Wang Zhongshan had been utterly disgraced. Face burning red, he glared at Zhou Hui. Do you have any idea how expensive my clothes are? Do I even what? Zhou Hui cut him off, his smirk deepening. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a gleaming gold card. Turning to the clerk, he declared, I'll take everything in this store, charge it all. The room fell into stunned silence. The employees, recognizing an unprecedented sale, rushed to pack and swipe the card in unison, their hands trembling with excitement. Zhou Hui approached the still-shocked Wang Zhongshan. Consider these clothes my compensation to you, but honestly seeing you in them is a disgrace. Let me help with that. With calculated precision, he took the scissors and slashed through the expensive garments, rendering them worthless with a few well-placed snips. Humiliation washed over Wang Zhongshan in waves, his pride, his status shattered. Grinding his teeth, he spat, Just you wait, kid, I won't let you off. With that, he stormed out, dragging his equally embarrassed companion along. Zhou Hui glanced at his account balance. Only 20,000 yuan remained. Shrugging, he decided to buy 2 more sets of clothes, one for himself, the other for his friend, stupid Liu. As he turned to leave, Zhou Li hurried after him, adjusting her posture to accentuate her figure. Flashing a dazzling smile, she purred, "Handsome, can I get your number?" Zhou Hui didn't even spare her a glance, "Not interested in people like you." She stood frozen, half embarrassed, half regretful. When had she ever offended him? Once again, Zhou Hui's actions became the talk of Slanka Market. At the next store, he picked 2 suits without trying them on. The sales clerk, aware of his recent stunt, treated him with near reverence, nearly calling him boss. With his purchases complete, Zhou Hui felt satisfied, until a voice echoed in his head. "Congratulations, host, for completing the mission and unlocking the next location." Following the system's instructions, he arrived at a secluded alley behind the shopping mall. After a few twists and turns, he spotted something on the ground, a black bag, seemingly abandoned. He picked it up. Ding! Challenge phase initiated. Before leveling up, you must spend the 100,000 yuan in this bag within 30 minutes. Failure to do so will result in a 50% reduction in your lifespan. Zhou Hui unzipped the bag. Inside, crisp stacks of bills filled every inch. "What the?" he almost swore aloud. 30 minutes to burn through 100,000 yuan. In an alley, this wasn't a test, it was a nightmare. "System, are you kidding me?" he shouted, but received no reply. Time was ticking. He clutched the money, heart pounding. In the past, he would have been overjoyed at the sight of so much cash, but now it was a desperate race against time. Then, "Ah, help, a thief!" Woman's frantic cry rang through the alley. Zhou Hui's ears perked up. That voice, it was familiar. Song Kaiyan. Without hesitation, he pulled a mask from his pocket, covering his face before sprinting toward the sound. As he rounded the corner, the scene before him confirmed his suspicions. Song Kaiyan struggled against a man attempting to yank her bag away. The challenge could wait. Right now, someone needed saving.